Hi, my name is Kelly G. Ever since 9/11, our country has been on high alert and doing its best to gather information to prevent future attacks like this. The information we acquire from terrorist prisoners can be invaluable, but should we really risk losing the credibility and morals that America has built up and stands for? My proposition is about how the use of torture on prisoners is an ineffective tool to gather information on terrorism. My first claim is that torturing prisoners is ineffective at getting them to cooperate and to reveal the information that they know. Army Colonel Stuart Harrington, a military intelligence specialist who conducted interrogations in Vietnam, says that 9 out of 10 prisoners can be persuaded to talk without using cruel and unusual ways. And I mean, when you torture somebody long enough, they're more likely just to say anything that you want to hear rather than something that might actually be true, or even if they don't know anything, you just tell them it to make them happy. And then of course you have the complete opposite, where they refuse to speak at all because either they fear their leaders more, or they're completely loyal to their cause, or because they don't know anything, or they maybe had training against it and would rather die than let you guys know what they know. Sorry. Okay. Prisoners are less likely to cooperate, and if they feel like they can't trust their interrogators also. Like in a hypothetical example, say you're the prisoner. Are you more willing to trust the interrogator that would beat you until you tell them something that they want to know? Or are you more willing to trust the interrogator that's willing to at least sit down with you and try to make a compromise? Like, say, if you tell us this, we'll get you out of here and we'll protect you or something. But you're more likely to get the first option. These interrogations make America look like the bad guys and we're the antagonists and stuff. Which leads me to my second claim, that the use of torture damages America's credibility and image. The American government doesn't advocate the use of torture, and yet it always happens. This makes Americans look like hypocrites. And because of that, some Muslims have actually joined Al-Qaeda because they were abused and tortured by American soldiers, even though they were probably just in the wrong place and at the wrong time. But now they want revenge. Or even if they do know something and they refuse to tell you and they were tortured because of it, you're just giving them more reason to want to go against us, and you're giving them reason to think that they made the right choice by going against us. Matthew Alexander, a man who served in the Air Force for 14 years and is an experienced interrogator, says, "We capture Al-Qaeda terrorists, some very high-ranking leaders who never provided information, but we didn't resort to torture or abuse because we knew it would have made us the hypocrites to sell out the very principles we were defending." Alexander is a man who likes using alternative methods, which leads me to my third claim, that there are other methods of obtaining information other than torture. Some methods you don't even have to make contact with the prisoners. I mean, you can just put bugs on them and you can let them go and just follow them around. Or another useful way to track and obtain information from them by following them is the use of satellite reconnaissance. That's the use of satellites to obtain information through different kinds of photo images. Basically radars, heat-seeking cameras, and just cameras, just pictures and stuff, clear pictures on Google Maps, but better. And then Matthew Alexander comes in again. He's also an author of the book, How to Break a Terrorist, the U.S. Interrogators Who Used Brains, Not Brutality, to Take Down the Deadliest Man in Iraq. Tells about how his interrogations were always very successful because they never tortured their prisoners, and they would just always talk to them, and they were able to fill up pages and notebooks full of information that could be used. A real example of this would be in the case of Najib. That's not, of course, his real name to protect his identity. He was a 12-year-old boy and the son of a high-ranking leader of Al-Qaeda that was taken in by Americans. He obviously hated Americans. He kept calling them infidel pigs and completely hated them. And all the older interrogators, the ones from Guantanamo Bay and stuff like that, they wanted to teach the punk who was boss and beat him and stuff. But then Matthew Alexander comes in, and he decides to treat him like a human being by actually just sitting down and talking with him. Within a couple of hours, he already started talking about all the places that his dad brought him to, and they found out that his dad was like grooming him to become a leader of Al-Qaeda eventually. And so, okay, they treated Naji with respect and civility. So about the time he left the detention center a week later, his hate for Americans had like completely vanished. Like he may have even become like pro-America. So this just goes to show you that the use of torture is an ineffective way to obtain information, and that there are much better alternatives. Yeah. I know. Huh? That's all I want. Because I saw her with 1 minute. Like in the screen was
All right, we've got the same issue here. You do identify the proposition, but it's originally phrased as a question. There's no setup of what the structure is going to be, but you do signpost the structure internally on those points. You're very dependent on hypothetical situations. You've got the one source that you go to repeatedly, and that source uses primarily examples to illustrate the points. And so I think we need a little bit more data on this particular subject. One of the problems here is the question of torture, because I doubt very much that anybody's going to be advocating torture, but the question becomes, so what is it that is so objectionable? Which techniques would people perceive as being torture, and are those the ones that are effective or ineffective? And I don't think we get enough explanation on those particular points. At one point, for instance, you talk about trust, but there's not much explanation about why trust is important in getting accurate information. And in particular, what kinds of situations do people resort to torture in? Is torture official policy? Do we have any examples where torture failed? You know, those kinds of things. We don't get any comparative arguments on that. There's one point where you make a secondary claim that suggests that it's a recruitment tool for terrorists, but there's no evidence on that. It's mostly asserted. The closest that you come to that, I guess, is Naji at the end, who's now loves Americans because the one guy treated him like a human being. But that doesn't necessarily indicate that anybody joined a terrorist group or became a suicide bomber as a consequence of somebody being tortured, them being tortured or somebody else being tortured. I think that's an assertion on your part. At the end of the speech, you basically end by saying the end. So there's our Porky Pig exit that I was a little bit worried about. All right, thank you.